Hey, so today I'm going to share with you the 5 secrets to lasting fat loss. And what I'm not going to be sharing with you today is anything to do with food or exercise or sleep or hydration. And the reason being, if we just take food as an example, there are many different methods, and we know that high carbohydrate diets can be effective, and we know that high fat diets can be effective, and we know that high protein diets can be effective. And what combines and what links a huge number of effective diets is there is science behind what makes a diet effective and what makes a diet ineffective, and you can read up on that science, but actually I believe that that's not actually that helpful. It may be helpful if there's an individual that's working with you that has kind of made some sort of promise, right? So if you're working with a nutritionist or a personal trainer or something, and they've said, I promise this amount in this amount of time if you follow my principles, then what they're really doing is they're putting them and what they've promised above you. And they probably don't know that that's what's happened, but in reality that is what has happened, because you and I and everybody on the planet are in very different places as it pertains to food and exercise and sleep and hydration and all of the details in our lives. There are some kind of steps that obviously need to happen, but the next best step for you isn't going to be the next best step for me or anybody else. So to abandon everything you know and everything you believe and then try and install someone else's know-how, wisdom, beliefs just isn't going to happen, right? While they're stood next to you, it may look like you're progressing because there's physical change, but the reality is that you're not, because our actions always follow on from our beliefs. And it may be that we acquire some new intellectual beliefs, but what we need to really acquire to make a transition is actual beliefs. And what actual beliefs are, they're just kind of seen in our actions, right? So if I was to look at your diary and your search history and track everything that you do every single day, what I would see is an outpouring of the stuff that you believe, not the stuff that you say that you believe. And that governs pretty much like 95%. It ranges between 90 and 99%, but it governs, let's say, 95% of all of our actions are just the beliefs, our actual beliefs just running in the background and us just kind of naturally working in response to those things. So we have to work all the way back to not what we know as nutritional facts, but what we know as facts about reality. And what we know as a fact of reality is, if we look at all mammals, of which we are one, all mammals eat in a way, sleep in a way, move in a way, drink in a way that supports their health without knowledge, right? They do it through wisdom kind of passed on culturally, but also through feedback. And this is a primary thing that I believe we all need to do, is we need to go, based on where I am now, I can feel these things, and start becoming aware of how we feel. And then we can take action from there. Like, this thing makes me feel better. This thing makes me feel worse. And that's pretty much what all animals are doing, right? They eat a thing, they feel sick, they don't eat that thing again. And I believe that all mammals demonstrate health, follow all of the things that they should do for health when they're healthy. I believe that the actions are an outpouring of health, not once I can finally get myself to do what's healthy, I'll be happy and healthy. It's the other way around, right? It's just a demonstration that you're not in alignment with how the body or brain starts to operate. Quite often, because we've kind of passed the responsibility. Let's say we've been trained to pass the responsibility to mum and dad. Mum and dad tell me what's good, mum and dad tell me what's bad, and I just align with that, and I betray my own feelings in order to get there. But we're going to stop doing that now, right? We're going to choose the 5 secrets to lasting fat loss. And the first one is reality. So reality is that, as I mentioned before, you're in a certain place and I'm in a certain place. Everybody is in a certain place with the way that they eat, sleep, hydrate themselves, move. And we need to get as clear an idea of what that is as possible. As I mentioned, 95% of our daily actions happen on autopilot. Don't trick yourself into thinking because you've noticed a thing, you decided that thing. That's just not the way that it works. So 95% of your actions happen on autopilot, and the decision has been made before you even know that it's been made. And we know that that's how our brain works. You know, we're up to 11 seconds now that we know we make a decision, and 11 seconds later, we're consciously aware of that decision, but we convince ourselves that we have made that decision now when it was made 11 seconds ago. Just like if you approach a junction, you have made the decision to turn left and right, even if you arrive at that junction and feel like you're deliberating. Even if you feel like you're deliberating over heads or tails, you made the decision before the words came out of your mouth or before the thoughts got into your brain. So we need to acknowledge that fact, that our actions are largely happening on autopilot, and then find out what those actions are. So we need to suddenly kind of start viewing ourselves as a stranger. If you can view yourself as a stranger and learn to get to know yourself, okay, step one in getting to know yourself is, what are you actually doing from day to day? You know, our memory doesn't exist to give us a perfect recollection of everything that we did in the past. It exists to help us move towards pleasure and away from pain. And then we layer in stories over the top of that. And that's one of the big problems that humans have, is we can make up stories about the future and stories about the past to justify to ourselves, to explain to ourselves that we are the type of person that we say we are or that we want to be. And we can be completely out of alignment with that, but our brain just won't let us see it. So we need to see reality. And the way we see reality is we start documenting as clearly as we can. You know, you could get a pen and paper and start writing down what you do every 15 minutes, or something else that you can do is go, I'm going to get as much information as I can. So maybe I'll photograph every single thing that I consume for a week. I will note down any exercise that I do. You know, if you can get an app on your phone or a watch that can track, let's say, how many steps you do as an example, that will help. It will inform you. If you can note when you go to bed and when you wake up in the morning, that's an extra bit of information that will help. And so by the end of this, you've got a picture of everything that you're consuming, the exercise that you're doing and how much you're generally moving from hour to hour if possible, how much you're sleeping and the time you're waking up, the time you're going to sleep. Maybe if you got up in the night, you could write down, you know, got up to pee or waking up X times a night. Hydration, the more information you can get on yourself, the better. And then when you've got that picture of reality, you can then decide where you're going to go. And where you're going to go is, you know, you want things to get better naturally, and you've got to be realistic. So setting this this idea of, I'm going to get to this place, I'm going to lose, let's say it's a stone, I'm going to lose 14 pounds. Now let's be realistic. Okay, so most people will say, or the science will say, I can lose 2 pounds of fat. But how are you going to measure that? Because scales aren't a very good system. So maybe I'm going to use measurements. Maybe I'm going to take photographs. Maybe I'm going to get as many different measures as I possibly can. Because if you don't hit one particular target, then you're going to get frustrated with yourself. But if you feel better, if you've written down, well, this is what I'm going to notice, this is how I'm going to feel, I'm going to have more energy, I'm going to sleep better, I'm going to feel calmer. Just every single thing that you could possibly notice, every single thing that you want to get better, write that down so that you've got more chance of picking yourself up. You know yourself, and you know that if somebody praises you or you get some positive feedback, it reinforces how you want to feel, and it makes you more likely to stay the course. So just choosing one measure, something like scales, and you've seen like people saying over and over and over again, don't use scales, right? And just because they're not a great tool for telling you what's actually happening. But the more measures you can have, the more things you'll notice. Your clothes are going to fit better. Are you going to feel more energized? You're going to feel lighter. What is it that you're going to notice? And then you can check in with that as regularly as possible. Because every time you notice something, and you said you were going to notice that in advance, it's going to lift you up. And you're going to need lifting up because you're trying to do something that is hard. If you look around you, you'll see that lots of people want to lose weight and very few people ever achieve it. And so you know that it's hard, right? So set it up as if you know that it's hard. You're going to need pick-me-ups all of the time. So if you can come up with 10 different things, 20 different things that you'll notice if this is going well, and you get 3 of them or you get 5 of them, at least you've got those things, right? They're little kind of gold coins that you're like, this is working, I'm paying myself in kind, I'm doing really well, I am progressing. You're gonna need that pat on the back because you're doing something new and something uncertain. So that's reality and knowing what you're gonna notice. Okay, the next thing is what you're gonna test. Are you, if you were to say to yourself, I'm gonna completely overhaul the way that I eat, does that sound realistic to you? Do you honestly believe you're going to do that? Or would you like to test one thing? What is the smallest, based on your reality? You go back to your reality and say, what's the easiest things that I can do? What are the easiest things I can test? And test is the really important word here. You have to be willing to see this as an experiment of making things better without having to do insane amounts in order to get there. Because you probably like your life as it is. You wouldn't be making the decisions that you were making now if you didn't like your life, you just weren't pleased with the outcomes. So accept that you like your life. If you could live exactly the way you are now but have better outcomes, you'd keep doing it, right? So let's move away from this as discreetly and as subtly and in as small a way as possible so that you can keep this as much as possible but get better outcomes. And then you'll keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that. But was there one thing from your reality, when you looked at those pictures, one thing jumped out at you and you went, wow, I am missing, or wow, I'm having a lot of, or wow, I'm eating way too, whatever idea jumped out at you when looking at those images, whatever feedback came to you, how do you move subtly away from that? Because 10% difference in hydration, in sleep, in food per day, in movement, that's a huge leap forward, right? If everything in your life got 10% better, that would be amazing. If this month it got 10% better, and then next month it got 10% better, and the following month it got 10% better, that's exponential growth, right? The places that you'd find yourself in 3, 4, 5 months' time would be miles away from where you are now. So what are you going to test and how? And by how, I mean, how are you going to measure this? Are you going to go back and look at the things that you said that you would notice? Is it going to be elimination of something? Is it going to be implementation of something? And what does that look like? What type of shopping has to happen? What has to happen in your home? How do you have to change your environment in order to align with this? And that kind of brings smoothly into the next one, which is isolate the obstacles. So the thing that we tend to do when we're kind of using willpower, we're really going to drive ourselves to go somewhere else, is that we tend to pretend that obstacles aren't real. Like, we tend to say, I'm going to fight this thing and win because I'm different and I'm better this time, and I'm going to be able to overcome this where old me couldn't. I'm better than old me, right? And that's a thing that our brain does, and we've got to accept that it does that and then isolate the obstacles. What stuff has derailed you in the past? What stuff in your environment is likely to derail you? Which promises are you making that you know already that you're unlikely to keep? And now, how can you edit those obstacles, or how can you overcome those obstacles in advance with practical measures, not with will or force? Okay, and this, I guess, brings me to the final point that goes to all of them. It's honesty. You need to go back and test yourself for honesty. So when I was checking my reality, did I tell the truth about everything? Did I photograph everything that I consumed? Or did I leave a few things out because I told some sort of story that, oh, this isn't representative of normal? Because this isn't representative of normal is the biggest con, because it definitely is representative of normal. It is always representative of normal. Even if you're saying to yourself, oh, this is an anomaly, I don't normally do this. This person, I don't normally go out with this person, or this doesn't normally happen. It does. It does normally happen. It happens way more than you think it does, but your brain is tricking you into convincing you that you're way more in alignment with what you say you believe than you actually are. And this isn't just you, this is me, this is absolutely everyone. So we have to go back and test everything for truth. Did I tell the truth in my realities? And then if not, don't beat yourself up. Just ask why not. Just have a long think about why that might be the case. Sit with a question. And the stuff that you're noticing, are you being honest with the fact that you're noticing those things, or do they need editing? Did you write down that I was going to feel like $1 million after 7 days or whatever? Do they need to edit so that you can hit the mark that you set? Because hitting the mark is going to be really important. It's like, I said I feel this way, I do feel this way, and your brain goes, well, that is better. That is 10% better than we were, so I'm happy. And knowing what you're going to test and knowing how you're going to test it, are you keeping to that thing? And if not, why not? Do you need to go back and look at the obstacles again? Are there more obstacles than you said there would be? Are you still trying to use willpower? Okay, and those are the 5 things. So it's reality. What will you notice? What will you test and how? Isolate the obstacles and test yourself for truth. And use this number 5 to keep revisiting those things. And as you become an expert at noticing, where what you expected appeared and where what you expected didn't appear, you will naturally become a person who notices and adjusts and notices and adjusts. Don't expect yourself to be like anybody else or be where someone else is, because that's the con. That's the biggest con, is looking at how someone else is doing and going, I want to be able to eat like them, and they eat worse than me and they've got it better than me. It's just so far away from wrong. It's untrue. You've got no idea where somebody else is. You have no gut biome like anybody else's. The way that your body works isn't the same as anybody else's. So the only real way to find something that works for you, that also belongs to you, is to do this testing, measuring, and noticing, and telling the truth along the way. And trying to take something that belongs to somebody else will just cause more problems, because you'll just get frustrated with that other person and with the stuff that you're doing rather than with yourself. And at some point, you will always have to go back to the noticing and the reality and the telling the truth and the obstacles in your life and the being real. There is no way around that. There is no way to get to where you want to go at all without taking those 5 steps. It just isn't possible. So I urge you to focus on those things. Even if you manage to lose 3 stone by following someone else's plan, still not your plan, still won't work for you, because any slight change in lifestyle and you'll just fall back. So this is the hard way, and the hard way is the only way. And the only reason that somebody else has something but appears to have not put in the effort is because they were handed a system gradually by the environment, by the culture that they grew up in, and they were able to test and measure themselves in a different environment to you. And you have advantages that they don't have in other areas because you had the same thing in other areas. Okay, anyway, that is it for today. I'd love to see any questions that you have below. Good luck, and I'll speak to you again soon. Goodbye.